Bridging Gaps, the business podcast with Deborah Levitt, sharing the challenges and stories of fellow business owners. In this week's episode, I join Richard Woods, award-winning entrepreneur, BBC's Apprentice finalist, and best-selling author. We meet just before his Lead Gen Academy takes place later in the evening. Hello, today I have Richard Woods with me. How are you, Richard?
I'm very good, thank you for inviting me onto the podcast.
You're very welcome, and I'm really excited to have you here today. So, Richard, you do a lot of things. I know I'm actually here with you for your Lead Gen Academy, but you've recently also started a new business, or bought a new business with boilers, and I think you've got quite a bit more on your plate as well. So do you want to share a little bit about what it is that you're working on these days? Sorry.
That's it. The podcast will end after I answer this question.
So should I just add in briefly?
Oh, look, I'm lucky enough to be I say lucky enough. Maybe it's actually a bit of a ball around my ankle. Is that as an entrepreneur, I constantly am looking at different opportunities and new things. And when anybody comes to me with something, I say yes. We could do that. Why not? It's a Branson quote, isn't it? Screw it, just do it. And that's probably been the bane of my life because I've ended up taking on a lot of businesses and a lot of workload. But I've got a 9-person boiler installation business called Boiler Servicing 24/7, which I picked up at the end of 2017. It was a previous client of mine for my marketing agency who we were doing the marketing for. Unfortunately, this guy, and this is common, unfortunately, in entrepreneur land, is that he had got some success. He'd grown from one-man band up to 9 staff and started to enjoy his success and buying various watches and stuff and taking people out too much on the company, and the company unfortunately went under, and it was such a shame because it's such a good business. So I brought the assets of the business out of the liquidators. I re-employed the staff, and for all of 2018 I've been running a boiler installation business, which I never thought I would be doing. So that's quite fun. So we fly around the Surrey, Hampshire, Berkshire, Southwest London, just installing boilers, servicing boilers, repairing boilers. So that's my sort of case study business, which is fun. My digital marketing agency, Yomp, has been around since 2009. We have a 11-step award-winning lead generation system that we parachute into business-to-business customers. That business is great fun. It's my baby. It was the thing that was my business plan that I went on the Apprentice with, which I'm sure you'll ask me about in a bit. And that's going from strength to strength. I've also got the Lead Gen Academy. So the Lead Generation Academy, where the Lead Generation Agency has customers that are normally 5 to 50 staff, our sort of spend starts at $2,500 a month. The solopreneur market really does need to look at lead generation because they spend a lot of time doing things like networking, more breakfasts, and physically spending their time generating inquiries, whereas actually a decent lead generation strategy should be generating inquiries whilst you sleep, whilst you're out at these breakfast meetings all day, all time of day. And so creating online assets like a podcast, for example, or websites, landing pages, so SEO, PPC, all that sort of stuff, knowing what to do and then implementing it is half the battle. And knowing what to do first and how to do it, and then having a community around you to support you who are also going through the same thing. That's what the Lead Generation Academy is about. So for not much money, you can be part of that and learn how to do lead generation for your business, and everybody's in the same boat. So that's why I love it. It's one of my babies. It's like having children. I've got 2 children, so I can say this. I love them all dearly, but at the moment, the new baby is the Lead Gen Academy-ish, because the boiler business is they're like twins. Whichever one cries at 5 a.m, I love least. But the Lead Gen Academy is the fun bit. I also do some one-to-one coaching for people who want to grow businesses very quickly. I've got a number of property developments. I have some HMO properties in Southampton for my students. I was a student. I bought my student house. I think that was probably, when I started to realise I was entrepreneurial was when all my friends were getting student loans and spending it on beer and going out. I managed to get 110% mortgage as a student. God knows how you do that. It was that time of life, but that was sort of just before the Northern Rock crash. I managed to get that deal brokered. Spent 5% of the 10% extra on doing up the house, and the other 5% I spent on beer. So I still
the beer completely.
the beer was still brought, but I also had a house at the end of it. So I picked up a few of those, and we also do something called service apartments. And those service apartments, we've got we've got 4 places in Eton High Street, 1 place right near the Castle in Windsor, and 1 place just down from the Castle in Windsor, which is great because of the royal weddings coming up. They're very full at the moment, which is lovely. But yeah, we use Airbnb, Experian, all the online places to rent out those places, and that's quite great. So.
Just a few things on your
plate. God, yeah, that's it. I think that's it for now. I'm really sorry. I really should say I've got another business called WP Aid, which is first aid for your WordPress site, that's launching today actually at the Lead Gen Academy, and it's essentially WordPress websites are invariably difficult to support, and people have web developers that then go astray and nobody can get anything done. So we're creating a company that just focuses on supporting WordPress websites. So we do all the hosting, but also give people 3 half-an-hour slots in the month to make changes. But most people don't use those slots. And so we proactively suggest changes for people to make to their websites, be it to speed stuff up, to add content, to make it better for lead generation. So we bring our knowledge of lead generation and proactively suggest things for people to do for their websites to improve it, and so they don't not use up their credits each month. So that's my new thing, my newest new baby. Oh my God, I've got to stop making myself pregnant.
So it's not a triplet. I can't quite figure out what this one is.
If it was a Facebook status, it would be it's complicated. Yeah.
But I can see the absolute benefit in that as well, because not the triplets and not the complicated. But as you say, quite often, when I want to make a change to my website, it's because I want to update the text. I'm offering a new service. I'm doing something else. I'm not thinking about the background and how quick it is or any of those things. So having somebody proactively saying, "Oh, Deborah, by the way, do you need anything else? No, you don't. Here, we'll do this," would be fantastic. Yeah, exactly. If I had a WordPress website.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's all right. We can always change you over to one.
Yeah, there speaks the sales, right?
Yeah, sorry. Tie me down. I'm a sales guy. Stop that, yeah.
So what made you, in terms of, as you said, when you were at university and everybody else was spending their money on beer and things, how did you, making that decision to not go and get a job, because if I'm not mistaken, you haven't ever really been in a full-time job, is that correct?
Not full-time, a couple of bar jobs. At university, I actually worked as the Saturday boy for an estate agent, so I just ran around doing the viewing, so hence I was able to get across and buy that place and have the inside track. But yeah, not a proper job. I've never had a proper job.
So taking that decision to not go down the route, which is the typical route for most people, is, you go to school, whether you continue to university or not, you get a job. How hard was that? Did you find people around you were resistant and thought that you were taking a risk, or were they just, "Oh, that's Richard"?
Do you know what? I think it's still the case. I know it sounds really strange that consider all the things that I just mentioned that I do, but there's always people that just think that you should just get a proper job because then it'll be nice and stable and life is easy and all the rest of it. And usually they're people that are close to you. Now, my wife is very understanding, but she has been through some massive ups and downs. I mean, unbelievably. And that there's no real shield for that in the entrepreneur world. I had some major health problems just before I applied to go on the Apprentice, actually, because the applying to go on the Apprentice was part of the right. I'm going to get back on my feet. But just before I was 30, I had 3 strokes. I mean that's not what should happen in your life plan. And I lost the vision in my left eye. I still have an injection every 6 weeks in my eye to get the vision back, and that was a mental time, because when you're out of work, I woke up in a stroke unit, was there for a few weeks, and I was there for a week, but I was out of work for a few months. There was nobody really to take up the mantle. I had a couple of guys working for me, but the business was very rocky and is about to lose it. And there isn't there's no sick pay, there's no support, you got to get back to work. You got to do the deals. And as a sales part, I've always been part of the sales capacity of my company, that you also have to not just go back and tick some boxes. You've got to really go and start flogging some stuff. And that needs a certain type of headspace. That needs a buoyant, happy-go-lucky way. That's my way. And if you're struggling to see out one eye and all the rest of it, it's a very difficult thing to do.
Well, as you say, it's not that you're going back in and just sitting down at a desk and being able to just be in your own headspace and crack on with something. It's being out there and essentially performing. However much it's you innately, it's still a performance to be that person to other people. So I can really imagine how tough that would have been. And so were you married at that point?
Yeah.
So,
and Cara was pregnant at that point as well. So
so an added stress.
Yeah, added stress for her. So that was not good. Yeah.
And how did you find then, as you were coming out of it, did you have doubts that maybe you should get a proper job, or were you always, no, this is where I'm going?
I've been unemployable since nappies. I didn't tell you how many of those part-time jobs I was sacked from as well. Most is the answer. So I knew. I just knew I wouldn't. And also I think real entrepreneurship, there's a confidence as well in your own ability. And I know that even in the hardest, darkest times, I can still turn around and make it happen. And you just dig in, you get stuff sorted, and you just do the work, and it will pay off. But you got to do the right sort of stuff. I'm reading a great book at the moment called Profit First, and it's a fantastic new way. It's not a new way, but it's a fantastic way of shifting your mindset away from being a busy fool and focusing on profit before anything else in your whole ecosystem, and not just saving that for the end of the month. Putting profit into a separate bank account. As you get money into your account, you put profit into a separate bank account. And this book talks about there's actually 5 bank accounts that every business should have, and you put profit in one, expenses in another, tax in another, that sort of stuff. And that done right, and all the creative flair in the world, if you just do some systems and follow those sort of processes and learn from people, then you're going to have a higher success of winning in the entrepreneur space than if you just go on pure gut alone.
Well, and I think it's really interesting because, as somebody who is still fairly, new and trying to establish where I'm going, the thinking about what am I going to do with these different bits of money has never actually come into it. And even when I was doing contracting and, had chunks of money coming in, to be fair, I was quite lucky that the person who was looking after most of my finances did some of that. But I never thought about it. It was just, okay, well, there's money in. I've got to remember I've got to pay these things. So having it actually there and watching it build up as well and going, actually, I know all my bills are paid. All of these things are covered. And there's still this little pile of profit growing would be really satisfying and encouraging, I think.
Oh, massively. And also people... You've got to remember 80% of small businesses fail. And then most of them say it's because of lack of profit is why they fold up the business. And if you put that front and centre in your whole way of thinking, then you stand a chance of survival. And when you break down that, say, £1,000 that comes into your business from a client, well, 20% of it's tax, and 20% of it might be VAT, so you've got to stick that into a separate account. You might be paying, corporation tax. So again, there's another sort of there's 20% on the profit, so it's not the whole amount, but 20% on the profit. There is the profit as well, so that's got to go into a separate account. There's also the money to pay expenses and suppliers, and then you've got your everyday overheads, that have got to be paid for as well. So that £1,000 has got lots of masters. But if you only pay the people that want to take the money away from that £1,000 first, and think about, well, what am I left with? Then you'll be left with nothing, because the tendency is that it just sort of gets diced, Whereas if you take out the bit that's the profit first and put that into a separate bank account, and then let the rest of the masters scribble out for their other stuff, then you've secured the most important bit, which is profit, which means that you live and survive another day.
Which is rather important.
It is, yeah.
So let's talk about The Apprentice.
Yeah.
We have to, really, don't we? So, as I mentioned to you before we started, I did, and I do actually still tend to watch The Apprentice, but I did watch the one that you were in, and you weren't a person that I thought I would get on well with. And then when I met you, you're a lovely guy, and you will be able to get out of the room. I'm sure I'll be able to bring you down later.
Anyway, is that my Uber? I just said no. Okay.
But the person that I saw on The Apprentice was very different to the person that I feel that I've engaged with, when we've met, and I'm just really interested to know how it feels to you. Do you feel you were a different person, or do you feel that that's how you were portrayed, or were you playing a part?
It's really interesting when you first go into that house on The Apprentice, and you are there for 12 weeks, and you get 1 10-minute phone call home a week. You don't go home at all, so it's all a bubble, and you get the cameras bursting in the mornings when you wake up and getting changed, and they're still there in the evenings when you go to bed. So it is Big Brother, but in London and a business program, and there's so much footage being filmed. And when I first got in there, my first realization was, actually, there's nobody that I can see as being the idiots that I was used to seeing for the last sort of 12 years on the programme. And so I was thinking, well, where's the idiots? And nobody was. Everybody was actually a really good person. Then you put pressure, then you put competition in place, and then you film every single working minute and have to then create a story out of it. And of course, the story of each episode is, if someone does something silly, you've got to show that. If someone throws someone under the bus, you've got to make them the villain. If someone, and I was lucky, I only lost one task in the whole thing. Mm-hmm. So they had to make a story out of that if I don't win the whole show. So they made me into an arrogant, sure of myself, X, Y, Z. And I'm fine. The other thing, I think the most important thing about life in general is that you just have to have broad shoulders. And so the amount of trolling that I got at the time and all the rest of it actually was quite humorous. In one aspect, people were self-imposing pictures of themselves onto my wedding photos, and there's a picture of me kissing my wife, and there's a picture of them. That's how weird the trolling got.
Really? Don't you have something better to do?
Yeah, I know. Of course, now that picture's framed as this. But it was a weird time. So yeah, they film enough to make you the fool, the idiot, the hero, the villain. And on some times I was the hero, on other times I was the villain. And because I didn't win, they had to obviously make the ultimate hero all the way through, the narrative all the way through, was Joseph, who won. And everybody always laughs because he was the biggest idiot there. And everybody, we got a WhatsApp group with the 18 candidates on, and we always laugh about how it all came to pass, that he was made out to be far more heroic than we all know him as. But hey ho, there you go. That's for a drink and a non-recorded conversation.
This isn't on, honestly.
Oh right, okay, yeah. So let me actually tell you how I feel. The one thing about The Apprentice that you do find out though is actually spending 12 days with Sugar, and so the whole boardroom's a whole day. And
okay.
He is a really interesting person to sort of get to know, and it's a little bit like when you see Branson's interviews. He's not as confident, Branson, on interviews, so he's a bit stuttery, Branson, etc. Whereas Sugar, when you watch the programme, he's very stern and quick and all the rest of it. But actually, they film so much that make him quick and stern, but he's not as speedy as you would think. there are some great little bits of advice that he'll give you, little nuggets that won't ever make the cut, but he'll say, look, if you did that and that, and you sort of hold on to that praise and that nugget as if it was some sort of father that had abandoned you as a child and had come back and finally shown his love to you. You're like, yes, please, and keep that in my pocket forever.
Could you sign it, please?
Yeah, please, sign my time. But he is a shrewd character, and he's done incredibly well for himself, but also he is just human. And meetings at a billionaire of that sort of magnitude, if you like, and getting to know him, even in that sort of relationship, he's just another guy. Same with Karen Brady. You know, she's Karen Brady's a bit of a diva, but she's got the same sort of things going on in her head as we all do, and she's still, you know, like these people don't walk in with halos, like they are just. And you have normal. I remember having a conversation with Karen Brady about how how Labour fell apart in the general election, which happened whilst we were on there about, you know, they fell apart in Scotland, and chatting away with her, and suddenly just coming to and just thinking, God, I just spent half an hour chatting with Karen Brady about the Scots and why they voted SNP instead of Labour. And like, hello, like, this is weird, but nice, you know.
Yeah, and as you say, it is people. You know, we're all just people, and it doesn't matter how much money you've got or how successful you may have been. Ultimately, they're just another person. But it's really easy to put something on them. Sometimes they put it on themselves as well, but you know, sometimes we put it on, and it's us, you know, making that gap in place. So
it's a mutually beneficial thing. You know, we want them to be superstars, and they want that because that allows them to navigate life a bit easier. You know, if we all didn't have that sort of barrier, we'd be going up to them in the streets and asking them questions, and that'd be very difficult for them to get from A to B. So it becomes it is a good thing, and of course, you know, they make considerable amounts of money doing public speaking as well, and that sort of celebrity status is of value to them. There is a pound value for the more following that you have, and in the world of influencer marketing and big audiences and having the ear of demographics that brands want to get into, you're going to see a lot more of this. You're seeing that with the Instagram culture, you're seeing that with the YouTubers and the vloggers and the bloggers, and the bigger your audience, the more valuable you are as a person in the way the brands think to society, and it's just tweaked a bit.
yes, just a slightly different angle.
Yeah.
So do you feel, well, first of all, do you still have contact with, you know, Karen and Lord Sugar, and I can't remember.
Claude Littner.
It was Claude
Yeah.
with you. I couldn't remember whether or not it was the other lady.
Nick.
Nick
Margaret. God, Margaret. Love Margaret. No, Margaret's off doing her sort of Egyptian TV programs, and Nick is doing, is it Countdown? Or is it Mastermind? Something like that. Yeah.
Yes.
God.
Yes, that's right.
I've never met the two of them, actually, Margaret and Nick. I would love to have done. But yeah, no, Claude's a bit of a bit. Things about Claude is that he will sort of have a chat with you off camera and go, oh, well done, man, you've done very well, done well. And of course, you get to back to the boardroom and he'll say, Alan, it was a disgrace. You're like, Claude, we're supposed to be mates. What happened? Come on. But no, look. When you finish the show, you don't get access to the. Actually, strangely, you know, there's the judges afterwards in the final five when they do the interviews. Had good conversations with them, asked them for advice. Claude's given me some advice on social, etc. So you do get access, but Karen Brady is. You know, Baroness Brady, she's just well up there. You know, she hasn't got time for the likes of us. She's a baroness, and of course, the big man. He, even the winners. You know, having no Mark Wright and Joseph and met up to Dr. Lear and Tom and Ricky Martin. They all say the access that you get to him is not big. You know, he's got his entourage of helpers, but there's not masses amounts of access. There might be, at the start, monthly meetings, but that might be on the phone, and then quarterly check-ins, etc. But it's you could hold it in your hand the amount of times that they actually have face-to-face access in a year.
Yeah, so he's not suddenly your best buddy and you're around to dinner every week.
But they do say that they call it dropping the sugar bomb. Which means that if they're struggling to get into a supplier or struggling to get into a customer, he will put a phone call in for them. Or if they are, or if they want to share something on social media, he'll then share on his channel, and then boom, it goes out to the world. And that's a very useful thing to do. And for him, it takes 2 seconds to retweet something, but that 2 seconds financially is huge for those brands.
Yeah, and the visibility and all of that. So obviously, it's been a little while since you were on The Apprentice. How do you feel that it has impacted what you're doing now and your ability to be successful and to keep moving forward, or was it just a step in the process?
I think it's impacted in a positive way. It's been a massive catalyst for personal brand, really. It's a difficult time coming out of The Apprentice because you want to, you spent almost 3 months out of your business, so you've got to go patch it up again when you come out, and then you've got to prep it. So you spend a lot of time patching up and prepping, and then it happens, and then you get a massive influx, you can't handle it, and you break a lot of your systems, and then before you know it, if I'm being honest with you, the sort of 2-year cycle comes back round, and then because you go on it, it's pre-recorded, and then it's released. So it's a year of crazy of the actual Apprentice, and then you've got the year afterwards, so it becomes a 2-year thing. You're on it. About this time, they've just started filming. In fact, the 1st of May was when I started filming, 2015. So I knew in January I got on, and December's when it stops filming from last year. So you sort of know that, so you have a whole year before the end of the actual thing, then your year before someone else's year. So it's 2 years, just under. And that's crazy, but by the end of the 2 years, if you look around at your business, you just think, crikey, I've just had the most mental time, but probably the business is in a bit better condition now, but it's been battle worn because it's just had so many punches, and you then get to go to these lovely red carpet events, you get to go do these talking gigs, and you earn well personally, but the business suffers because it's losing its helm and what have you. So
the focus that you had on it before is now being splintered into lots of different areas.
So then you come back out after those 2 years and then refine it, and then you've got a really good business in the system. I know a lot of guys went through this. I had a few assets in play, which was my book, which went to bestseller because of a lot of the knowledge and what people looked at, which is great. I had a few other assets in play, which is my the process, the system, the community, getting one-to-one contracts with people. So these things are constantly paying off because of putting that in place. A lot other apprentice people didn't have that, so they sort of started their new business. The Apprentice happened, so their business was sort of a couple of months old, and they just weren't able to handle that. So they win a couple of clients, then they lost a couple of clients because they were only clients because of The Apprentice, and then they find themselves not further forward. Whereas I was lucky enough to have these sort of assets in play to be able to work it through. So fun and games.
So looking at the boiler business, when you took that on, you said, you bought it out of liquidation, you rehired the guys who'd been working there and are working really hard to make it successful again. Sorry, I'll figure out my question.
What were you thinking?
Really? No, what is your approach in terms of going in and taking something where I would imagine that the emotions of the people that you rehired were a bit up and down because they'd obviously, been let go. Now they've got another job, or being rehired, but maybe not sure how long that's going to last, or if you know anything about boilers and can actually, build it to success. So how do you take that business, which has been in a lot of trouble, and start to try and change it and to start moving in the right direction?
I think, first of all, you got to know what you're getting yourself into. So you've got to be able to really analyse very quickly what you're buying, and and then what you're buying it for. And I did a big due diligence on the actual asset value of the vans and the website and the amount of leads it gets. Luckily, we built the website, so I knew how many leads it got. And then you got to think about, well, I think it wasn't much money that I had to put in, because obviously you're just buying these things out of liquidation. But if it all went wrong, you still got those assets so you can get out. So that is the financial piece. The other more important piece, you've got to win the hearts and minds of the guys. And luckily, not lucky, I mean, this all happened for them just before Christmas. So I was able to cover their money during Christmas, and they were able to obviously not have that problem, not be made redundant at Christmas. So you sort of keep, and that helps. And then you build loyalty, you spend a lot of time in it, you really help people when they need help, you just spend the hours on it. And that's one thing that I would like to do more of, is spend a bit more time in it, because at the moment I'm being pulled from pillar to post, as you can probably tell from the business. But that's probably, and I'm not out, I mean, it's in its first year still, but if I was to still have another run at it, I'd spend even more time in it and probably have less things going on if I was to do another one. But opportunity never comes at the right time. It never comes. It was like I was talking to Cara, we were talking about, we got two kids. And so there's never a good time to have a baby. It's just a better time than the other times, And so it's, this opportunity came out of nowhere, and it wasn't a good time, but it wasn't a bad time. It just all right, okay, right, we'll go for it. Is it too good to turn down? So that's the other piece, and you then just got to learn the business. You've got to really try and get a PhD in that business. You've got to learn about things like boilers and flues and magnaflows and stuff that I don't even want to know.
You didn't know you were going to know about.
I didn't. Yeah, I've forgotten stuff that this isn't worth talking about. So that's what you do, and then you've got to sprint at it and have a strategy. What are you going to do? Are you going to really grow it for large business? Are you going to scale and exit? Who are you going to exit to? How are you going to do it? How are you going to look after the staff? And once you've got that clear in your head, then don't deviate from the plan. Keep on chugging at it, and just boom, away.
So you know where you're going to.
Yeah.
And how did you find it? Because your other businesses are much less tangible. So, lead generation and, as you mentioned about the WPA, obviously the businesses around the properties are tangible. But a lot of the other ones are around, things which are on a computer, things that people can't see or touch, or, they're I'll just stop now. They're intangible. Yeah. How did you find that shift to something which is very tangible?
Yeah, I always said that actually, and actually, for me, I think you have trading businesses and asset businesses, and I think that the job of good entrepreneurship is to make money in businesses that are trading, and understand that you're building up an asset there, but something could go wrong and the whole thing could fall apart. Your job really for your family is to scrape the bit off the top and plonk that into an asset class and make sure that's not just one. That's diversified, and that secures their pension. And if you've got lots of property and some bonds and some shares, they're proper assets. And yes, some stuff can crash, but if you do it right, that secures you for the rest of your life. And you can sit on it, and you don't have to sell it. You just sit on it, you can make money. Whereas the stuff at the start, if you can have it as a trading business, you scrape it off, you put it in there, scrape it off, put it in there, that's work. So it doesn't matter if it's selling website stuff or selling boilers, they are both hard businesses. You chug away. But the reason why you do it is for those assets. And that's great advice for anybody doing things, because otherwise, barring a couple of problems, you could find yourself not able to pay your own mortgage, and that's just silly.
Yeah, and that's where it gets tough and stressful, and I think making decisions at that point when there's a big pressure making good decisions is really difficult at that stage. So what about some of the challenges you've faced and anywhere across your career? Anything that you would say, well, actually, this was a really difficult time? We've talked about the health aspect and the strokes. and how that was, clearly very challenging. But other things around, maybe just being in business or things you didn't expect, things that other people might be encountering as well.
I think you've got to find out why you're different in business. If you try and be all things to all men, you're nothing to no one. And that's massive advice. People have got to ask themselves, how does someone buy me? How does someone buy my thing? And once you know that, then that's great to be able to build upon that. And then you find that thing, the thing that people buy from you, and you pile into it and become an expert and thought leader in that. For me, it was lead generation, and the way people buy it is through my 11-step system. And from that, I can pile in. Now I'm known as being the guy who you go to for lead generation, and the academy and the agency and all that sort of stuff, the books, they all have that flavour of lead generation. And in fact, I'm writing another book, my third book, called Lead Gen. Simple as that. Do you know? And so
it's very clear what it's about.
It's very clear what it's about. But that's why I don't need an introduction when I go and do things, because people are starting to pigeonhole me, and people get, and this is a borrowed term from Thomas and from Dent, and he said people get niche claustrophobia, and I love that phrase. They get claustrophobic in their own niche. And actually, if you liken that, you say you're a cannonball. How do you fire a cannonball? You've got to stick it somewhere very claustrophobic before it can launch,
Yes.
And it's a cannon. And people get really claustrophobic about that, and they're so they want to be on the wide expanses, but how are you going to launch a cannonball if you haven't got a cannon? So not getting that claustrophobic and that grass is greener syndrome. Oh, they're doing that. Oh, yeah, they're doing property development in London. Look at the prices. Or they're doing this sort of, network marketing model. Or, oh, look at that. We'll do some affiliate marketing. Yeah, whatever it is, there's always other cookie jars. And you've got your hand already in one. So just eat.
Make sure it's a flavour you like.
Yeah. Chocolate chip.
But I know, and actually when I started as well, and just that whole, when somebody says to you, who are you targeting? And well, everybody, I can work with anybody, and the reaction and the feeling when somebody's going, no, you need to narrow it down, and it is almost a panic of, but if I narrow it down and I'm only talking to the small teeny group, I've pushed all these other people away, and it is almost counterintuitive to what you feel you should be doing, and it's only as you start, I guess, as you say, going with it and accepting it, that you start thinking, okay, yeah, actually, I can see now why this is good, because now I know who I'm talking to, and while they're teeny in comparison to the whole world, they're big in terms of my audience. They're it's a big opportunity, but it's and I see people going through it. Even now I'm doing some mentoring for Princess Trust, and one of the people I'm mentoring is kind of, well, it's for everybody. And I think, well, we might need to try and narrow that down a bit. So I think it's a natural progression to be worried about it, to feel scared of it, and then to have to go through accepting that actually, this is the right thing. And as you say, that then just keeping your hand in the cookie jar, and not trying to get them in all sorts of things. You don't want to finger in every pie unless they're you.
Well, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's true. But even on that front, you look at the portfolio and everything's around marketing except for the boiler business, and the property is the asset class, so that's the investment piece. But the boiler business is my case study that I pile all my lead generation stuff into, and then I present those results at Lead Gen Academy back to people, and people go, oh, okay, that's how it works in the real life. It's almost me putting my money where my mouth is, so that becomes quite fun and exciting. But yeah, you're 100% right. To use a North American term, the riches are in the niches.
I'm still not into niches. What is it? Riches in the niches? So, lots on your plate. And in addition to all of the businesses, you've got, a wife who is there, as you said, going through the good times and the bad times, 2 children. How do you manage to keep your well-being? So there's huge amounts about mental health around these days, and just that keeping the family. The kids know who dad is. He's not somebody who just flits in occasionally and disappears. How do you balance all of that?
We made the decision actually to not, because Cara works as well. She's got a bit more flexible, so she can take a bit more time off. But we made the decision to not put the kids into childcare on Fridays, and then every Friday I'll have the kids for half a day and Cara has the kids for half a day. So we can still sort of do some bits and clear some emails, and usually our half days will have all of us for lunch. So we'll all have lunch, and then I'll take them in the afternoons and Cara has them in the mornings. And that's really nice because it's a bit of Daddy and Poppy Milo time, and that's great. We'll go to soft play, we'll go to a farm, we'll go spend some time, and I really like that. And because it's Friday afternoon, I just turn the phone off, like done. So that's great. So that's just me and the kids' time, and then obviously weekends, although invariably stuff will happen. I'll work a Sunday or what have you, but you just have to be a little bit more stringent with your time off. And also I think half the problem with entrepreneurs isn't necessarily taking your weekends off, it's actually taking your brain off work at the weekends. And I still struggle with that because I'm running at a million miles all the time, and I'll be gazing into space when we're having a meal, and Cara's like, what are you thinking about? I was like, oh God, I was thinking about the disavow tool on Google, and what's she talking about? Like, really? Yeah, I was like, yeah, it's really bothering me. Like, hello, the ice cream factory, and your son's eating directly from it. All right, I'll go sort that out. Okay, I'm sorry, darling. But it is important. It is important. Actually, Daniel Priestley is a good friend of the two of us, and he says book your holidays at the beginning of the year for the year. Book them out first, and then you guarantee yourself you're going to have holidays on it, and you work towards those. Whereas if you go, oh, I'll book a holiday next month, you never get around to it. And that's an important piece as well, to actually get out and to have some time away to recharge the batteries to then go back with some new gusto. I'm looking forward to carrying out that idea. At some point,
so what
I'll properly
do you have
implement.
booked?
I have none. I have a holiday in Boilers, and
I'm sorry, that doesn't sound like it's going to sell.
I'm sprinting a boiler business at the moment, and it's like having 2 wives. Yeah.
I'm a little bit worried about the boiler business now because it's been a baby, a twin, and now it's a wife.
It's weird. I'm from the country. It happens out in Windlesham, yeah.
But I know what you mean in terms of the holidays, and I think it's a really good tip from Daniel. Because as a contractor, one of the things that I found is that a lot of other contractors would not take breaks. And I actually, what I would do is I would look at it and I go, okay, I need to take a break. And typically I was going back to Canada, and I would go back for about 4 weeks. And I realized that what I couldn't do is I couldn't think about how much it was going to cost me in terms of what I didn't earn in that period. And so I started where I would actually think about what I was earning, and I reduced it. I would always think of it as 10 or 11 months that I worked, and that was what my income was going to be. And I just would not think, because otherwise I would be looking at the cost of, I didn't earn in this month that I was away, and my trip cost me this much, and this happened. And you really difficult to take that time out. And I would see lots of other contractors who just couldn't do it. And so of course then they're just there and they're not being productive. They're not having that time out to refresh. So I think it's very similar in, your own business, is that, well, if I'm not here, what's going to happen? And it's going to cost me. That client might not book, or this might not happen. So book a holiday.
Book a holiday. Yeah, take the no. It's 100% right. It is 100% right. And you just come back from it refreshed. Your best ideas happen on holiday.
Yes,
they really do.
Yeah, you do. I went back to Canada once, and this was a year where I'd been doing lots of traveling, and I'd flown to the States on business. So I was at this point where when we got on the plane, I was traveling with a colleague most of the time, the flight attendants knew us. And we were seeing more of them than anybody else because we seemed to be back and forth all the time. And I'd flown into Raleigh, and then I'd flown to Chicago, and from Chicago I'd flown to Canada. But I still was trying to do some work, and I got to my brother's and realized that I couldn't actually connect to anything. And so it was this enforced break because it was like, but I'm trying and I can't get, and it was so what I needed because I had just been, everywhere. And having that enforced break just made a huge difference. And I remember going back to my mum after that, and she said, oh, shall we go out to dinner? And I said, no. I've been living in hotels. I said, actually, I'd like to eat at home. And actually, I want to cook. She's looking at me. That's it. So it's
yeah. It's 100% true. My wife's from West Cork, in this tiny little village called Union Hall, and every house is a different colour. It's beautiful on the side of the dock, but there's no signal. There's absolutely no signal. And there's one little, it's not a cafe because that's too cosmopolitan for Union Hall. There's a little tea shop. The rest, there's like 6 pubs and 1 tea shop, of course, is Island. But it's got Wi-Fi in it. So every now and again I go a little sprint down there for an hour and then I'm go back and see the family. But it's lovely, just nature and life and just humans and just, it's a beautiful thing to not be able to connect to the world sometimes.
It is, and to just be in that moment. I think I'm not sure if I've mentioned it to you, but I was down in Cornwall at the beginning of the year, and I was sitting in this cafe, and I had, Woody was next to me, and I had my book, and I was planning on, doing some reading, and then I realized that actually I wasn't reading. Woody was happily chewing on something, which he probably shouldn't have been. And I was just watching all of the people on the beach and just watching the world go by. And it was so nice to just be, essentially, not doing something. So it has a huge impact.
It's nice.
So what do you do, Richard, though, in terms of, so you've got some of the time with the children and trying to keep your weekends free where possible, but are there any things that you do that are to help you to take a break? Are there any, so several people I've spoken to have said, actually a surprising number, have said that they do meditation, the gratitude journals, lots of things across men and women, which is really actually taking me by surprise. But are there any things that you do to help you to just, I guess, stay balanced?
I don't know. I mean, I don't meditate. I don't do any sort of journaling or anything along those lines. It's just I mentally, I spend some time in my own head, and I quite like that time. Mm-hmm. I'm good company. I'm going
to have to agree because we've been laughing a lot.
But the one thing that I make sure I do is that I realised that I was never going to the gym, and I sort of had to try and reverse engineer the gym because you spend 20 minutes driving to the gym, you get changed, etc. It might be during the day or in the evenings, you're not going to see the kids, or it might be like a 2-hour round trip to 1 hour gym session, half an hour there, half an hour back with changing, etc. So it's just too much time, I can't do it. So I sort of reverse engineer it, and I've got my PT now that comes to my place and got a little gym in my garage, etc. that I set up, and that gives me my 2 sessions a week, and that keeps me, in a good mental space. It gets out a lot of that sort of energy, and I'm quite I have sort of a lot of built up energy anyway, so it gets all that out, de-stresses, and that's been really important for me. So that's the bit that I do for me to keep that. So if you had that quadrant, you sort of have your health in one, your family in another, your creative bit and the work bit. That's the bit that I tick that box on. And I think sometimes when you analyse yourself, you do need to tick all the boxes. Otherwise, you're too much of something and not enough of other things.
Yeah, exactly. And you do realise, the one thing I tend to get told is that I'm too in my head, that I'm not grounded enough. Yeah. And as you say, it's that getting out and doing something and not just thinking.
Yeah.
So just before we wrap up, Richard, are there anything that you want to say generally, any sort of last key tips you'd like to share with people?
So I mean, it's interesting key tips. I think when you're an entrepreneur and growing a business, there'll be always times that it feels difficult, and when it feels difficult, stuff starts to fall apart around you, and then one problem will come to another problem, and I think it's always important to rise above stuff and just keep your eye on what the plan is. And if you keep your eye on where you're headed and keep on chipping away and chipping away and chipping away at it, even when the stuff starts falling around you, that plan, keep it in your head, is going to be the bit that keeps you in there. And read Profit First, because it will just refine your mindset around make money, not turnover. Turnover, we all know, is an arrogance play. And then it's work the profit piece. If you work the profit piece, then you're going to be doing a lot better. And it took me a long time to get there, but now I realise that that's a important lesson I want to share with as many people as possible.
That's really wonderful, and I'll put a link to the book into the podcast info when I send it out, so if anybody's looking for it, it should be easy to find, and to your books as well, of course.
Oh, of course, Brexitpreneurship and Digital Trailblazer, 2 fantastic books. And come to the Lead Gen Academy. Anybody here, that you can come as my guest to the Lead Gen Academy and check us out. We're in Farnborough, which is North Hampshire, and only 40 minutes on the train from London. And if you want to learn about lead generation, then you're there. We're doing Facebook advertising and retargeting tonight. The next one will be LinkedIn training. But DM me and I will surely link you up.
And I have to say, having attended the Google SEO one a couple of months ago, it is a wealth of information. And I've been really impressed, not just with the quality of the information, but the generosity of the information and what you guys have shared. So I strongly support anybody who, is debating whether to come or not, come.
Come to it.
So thank you very much, Richard. It's been a pleasure, and I really appreciate you taking the time as well.
No problem at all. Thanks for the invite.
You're welcome.
Richard's next Lead Gen Academy evening is Thursday the 5th of July in Farnborough at the Village Hotel. They will be presenting on video marketing and how to use it for lead generation. If you're interested in attending, as Richard mentions, drop them a DM or contact me and I can put you in touch with him. They are really great evenings. I've had huge benefit from the ones that I've attended. If you're interested in starting your own podcast, why not sign up for my Start Your Own Podcast course? You can sign up at startyourownpodcast.bridginggaps.uk. You'll find links in the show notes.
You've been listening to Deborah Levitt on Bridging Gaps, the Business Podcast.